us to item number 5, the informational report on the 1982 Hollister Ranch Public Access Program. Sarah Christie, our legislative director, will be presenting this along with Linda Laughlin, our access program manager. So take it away, guys.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. This is an informational briefing on the Coastal Commission's Hollister Ranch Access Program. I did want to note that the Commission, this is an informational item only, and the Commission won't be taking any action today. But staff did set up an email account in advance of today's item for public comment and suggestions on how the program might be updated. We've received a number of emails to that account, and on Tuesday morning we uploaded all that we had at that point and attached them to the report. We've received several more comments since then that have not been attached to the report for logistical reasons, but because this is not an action item and the public comment line is going to be open throughout this process, I just wanted to assure members of the public that we are receiving and retaining those comments, and when there is a final action to be taken, those will be made available to the Commission. So with that, the interest in this topic stems from an issue last year surrounding the proposed settlement agreement to abandon an easement at Hollister Ranch's Alegria Beach. The discussion that generated with the public led to a broader discussion about the lack of access at Hollister Ranch generally, which then led to a rediscovery of sorts of the Hollister Ranch Access Program, which was prepared and approved by the Commission in 1981 and amended in 1982, but has never been implemented. So in response to that, last August, Assembly Member Monique Limon, who represents this district, authored a bill, AB 2534, that would have jump-started the process for actually acquiring the easements necessary to implement the access that's outlined in the program. Although Governor Brown vetoed that bill, his veto message did acknowledge the merits of the bill, but suggested that because the program was 36 years old, that it should be updated before any funding mechanisms are created. So the purpose of today's presentation is to review the Commission's statutory authority for the Access Program, its specific components, and the process for updating the program going forward. Hollister Ranch is a 14,000-acre historic cattle ranch that was originally part of a Spanish land grant. In 1971, which was just before the passage of Proposition 20, the entire ranch was subdivided into 135 approximately 100-acre parcels. Hollister Ranch is a central piece of the larger Gaviota Coast, which is the ancestral home of the Chumash First Peoples. Today, it has the dubious distinction of being the least accessible stretch of coastline in California. Along with the privately owned Coho Halama Ranch and Vandenberg Air Force Base, these properties together constitute more than 60 miles of shoreline, with less than 2 miles of that open to the public. With over 8 miles of south-facing shoreline, Hollister Ranch is a coveted surf spot. The Ranch Owners Association maintains a private road, Rancho Real, that stretches the length of the property roughly parallel to the coast, with several smaller roads that provide access down to the sandy beaches. Ranch rules limit beach access to property owners, their family and friends, and private guests, which allow in the aggregate for a theoretical maximum of approximately 3,000 visitors per day. Although the property was subdivided prior to Prop 20 and the Coastal Act, all subsequent development has required coastal development permits from either the Commission or the County of Santa Barbara through its certified LCP. And even though it is a private subdivision, Hollister has not been exempt from the public access policies of the Act. At first, the Commission attempted to secure public access through permit conditions, which was typical of the time. This was, for instance, how the YMCA easement was created at Alegria Beach. But this approach met with significant opposition from property owners, resulting in multiple lawsuits with conflicting opinions at the trial level, all of which went up on appeal. The landowners' primary argument, in a nutshell, was that private individuals did not have the legal authority to grant public access across land owned collectively by the association. In other words, Rancho Real and the spur roads down to the sandy beaches. So, to avoid years of legal wrangling and at significant state expense, the legislature passed AB 643 in 1979. The bill amended the Coastal Act to give the Commission the discretion to pursue an alternative approach for securing public access in coastal subdivisions by replacing individual responsibility for providing access with a process that would instead spread that obligation generally among all property owners. Coastal Act Section 30610.3, which was added by 643, authorizes the Commission to identify coastal areas with inadequate access, such as Hollister Ranch. Upon designation of an eligible area, the Commission is charged with preparing and adopting an integrated access program that outlines the type of amenities to be provided. The Coastal Conservancy's subsequent role is then to establish in lieu fees to fund the necessary acquisitions, purchase the easements, build the improvements, and carry out the program, either directly or through a partnership agreement, guided by a management plan prepared by the Conservancy. In this way, property owners are free to build by paying into a fund for managed access to meet their obligations under the Coastal Act, instead of doing so parcel by parcel. This approach seemed like a great idea at the time, and the Coastal Commission supported AB 643. The bill was signed by Governor Jerry Brown in his second term. And in August of 1981, the Commission adopted the first Hollister Ranch Access Program, providing hiking, biking, camping, and shuttle van access to 6 of Hollister's beaches, along with restrooms, rangers, and recreational facilities. It was amended a year later in response to recommendations from an environmental assessment that was underway at the time the original program was adopted. The primary changes between the 1981 and the 1982 versions was the institution of daily visitation limits and phased access, which Linda Laughlin will go over in more detail. However, although many properties went ahead with their development plans as soon as the bill was signed, they still weren't willing to agree to the idea of public access. The Conservancy was denied the entry they needed to conduct the necessary surveys beyond a few limited common areas of the ranch. Without the underlying surveys, the Conservancy couldn't calculate the value of the properties and hence couldn't negotiate purchase prices or determine the appropriate amount of the in lieu fee. So while development proceeded apace at Hollister, the access program that enabled it was effectively stalled. That was clearly not what the legislature had in mind. So, in 1982, the legislature stepped in again, this time with AB 321, which amended the Coastal Act to add Section 30610.8, setting the Hollister in lieu fee at $5,000 and invoking the authority of the Public Works Board in conjunction with the Conservancy to provide public access at Hollister Ranch, quote, in a timely manner and as expeditiously as possible, end quote. The in lieu fee was supposed to increase by 5% per year once the easements were acquired. AB 321 also directed the expenditure of a $500,000 appropriation from the 1981 Budget Act to begin the acquisition process. But there was still a problem. The Conservancy still couldn't get on the property. So finally, in November of 1982, the Public Works Board, on behalf of the Conservancy, requested the Attorney General to pursue a court order for entry at Hollister Ranch. But other forces were also at work in 1982. George Duke Machen, who had campaigned on a platform of abolishing the Coastal Commission, was elected governor of the state. Once in office, he did his best to make good on his promise, cutting the commission's budget by over 50%, appointing commissioners who did not support the program, and replacing all of the voting members of the Public Works Board. The legislature passed a series of bills over the next few years trying to expand both the commission's and the Conservancy's authorities, but the governor vetoed them all. In 1983, the court finally granted the state's earlier request for entry at Hollister Ranch. The order was good for 180 days. The Hollister Ranch Owners Association requested a 1-month delay, and the reconstituted Public Works Board agreed. After that, the trail goes cold. As the coastal agencies assumed a more defensive posture under the new administration, priorities necessarily shifted. The prospects for implementing the access program grew dim, and it slowly slipped into obscurity. So that's how we got here 36 years later, with an adopted program but no public access at Hollister Ranch. Because the easements were never acquired, the 5% annual increase has never kicked in, and the in lieu fee remains at the 1981 level of $5,000 per permit, which has accrued in the amount of approximately $300,000 currently held by the Conservancy. If the easements had been acquired in a timely manner as anticipated, the current value of the in lieu fee would be about $30,000. Yet the program itself is still a valid document that could be implemented as is. But with renewed interest in reevaluating the public access opportunities at Hollister and updating the program accordingly, this is a good time to consider just what the 1982 program envisioned. Linda Laughlin, our Public Access Program Manager, will take it from here to go over the various components.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. So let me just give you a little context where Hollister Ranch is. It's located directly adjacent or west of Gaviota State Park, and here's a slide of the state park. To reach Hollister Ranch by road, visitors travel from Highway 101 and take the exit to Gaviota State Park. Quickly, the road forks, and if you go left or west or east, you turn into the state park, and if you go west, you reach the Hollister Ranch gate. Here's a picture of Gaviota State Park taken from the pier, which I'll discuss in a minute, and you can look back and see a big, wide, sandy beach, very popular. There's all sorts of beach activities, people in the water, there's camping, there's a large parking lot, there is restrooms. The pier and a hoist for launching of motorized boats, as I said, this is where that picture is taken from, is pending for repair and reopening. And when that hoist and pier are reopened to the public, boaters will be able to access the shoreline off of Hollister Ranch a little more easily. The 1982 Access Program designates Gaviota State Park as the staging area for visitors to Hollister Ranch. So visitors would be parking their private vehicles in the state park parking lot. They would use the restrooms, and they would be able to visit the kiosk. The park is also designated as the shuttle location for the 15 passenger vans that will take visitors into the Hollister Ranch shoreline area. This is a photo of the existing ranch entrance gate. It's a security gate, so if you drive up the road into toward Hollister, this is what you are met with, and all guests must be all stopped there. They're all checked in, and there is strictly controlled access into the ranch. This next photo is looking basically from that guard area, looking west along a portion of the beginning of Hollister Ranch. You can see the ranch road on the right-hand side of the screen, and on the left-hand side, you can see the railroad tracks, which parallel much of the shoreline. And then, of course, there's the actual beaches moving on in the far distance of that photograph. The ranch road is a rural in nature. It meanders with the topography. Speeds are moderate, and that's what would be used to ferry the public out to and along the shoreline. Again, this is the adopted program, 1982. The ranch access program was initially adopted in 1981. At the time it was adopted, the Commission acknowledged that the program might be needed to be amended in light of a pending environmental assessment. That assessment was completed and then adopted by the Commission in 1982. After that, the Commission directed the staff to amend the program based upon this assessment, as well as per discussions with the Hollister Ranch owners as well as the Coastal Conservancy staff. And then what you have before us today, which is the adopted version of the Access Program, again, August 1982. This Access Program consists of two major sections. The first section contains the Coastal Commission findings for adoption of the program. The second section describes the phasing and implementation of the access improvements. The findings contain a lot of useful information that is still very relevant today, such as description of the topography, the history, and past commission actions, as well as facts relating to the mileage, acreage, and site names. Other findings clearly need to be updated to reflect the number of developed lots, the location of existing private recreational facilities, and the current level of public use. Other findings may or may not require revisions, such as beach width, distribution of species and habitat, current agricultural operations, and the possibility of linkages with county trail systems. So as I described, the access program is phased and monitored. The first component of the program is the use of a shuttle van to get the public out into the ranch. It would be staged again at Gaviota State Park, and entrance would be by a shuttle van system. There would be no private cars allowed onto the ranch. The program as adopted would limit public use initially to 100 people per day during the first year, and it would increase over time to a maximum of 500 people per day. The program would allow for public access hours between 6 a.m. or sunrise to 9 p.m. There would be ongoing monitoring between the three phases of implementation to account for and adjust for any impacts, and there will be a separate management plan for each phase prepared by the Conservancy for Commission Executive Director review and approval. In addition to the shuttle van program, pedestrians would be allowed to walk along an easement along the road. That picture I showed you previously gave you an idea what the road looks like, and then use the existing crossroads to reach the beaches. When the tides are low and the seas are calm, some beachgoers would be able to walk along significant portions of the shoreline, and some of the beach areas would connect to each other, making at times for a nice long walk beach experience. The program also includes an easement for bicyclists to use the road. They would be using the road along with vehicles. It would be a Class 3 bicycle pathway. I want to note that the program also provides that 20% of all daily users could either ride a bike or walk in, as opposed to using the shuttle system. The program also recognized the need to construct beach facilities for the general public. Each of the 6 beaches that I'll show you some pictures of have private facilities already constructed for the Hollister Ranch homeowners and their guests. But for the general public, the program acknowledges that facilities would be needed, such as restrooms, drinking water, showers, trash cans, and signage to explain the rules, as well as security guards. This is an overview of Hollister Ranch with the 6 beaches that are included in the program. Again, it's a phased implementation for opening to the public. The first phase would be the 2 beaches called San Augustin, that's on the far west, and Sakati, which is in the middle reach. Both of these beaches are generally wide sandy beaches that we believe could easily accommodate the new public users without significant impact for environmental impacts. And the program, again, would limit the public use to 100 persons per day for year 1 and could be increased to 200 persons in year 2. Then let me show you 2 pictures. Here's San Augustin Beach, and again, you can look above the beach. You see an existing parking area with a car or more. This is what Hollister Ranch homeowners and their guests use today. Here's another picture of the second beach that would be included in Phase 1, Sakate, which is also the site of the eastern end is the site of the Corta Canyon Beach. the YMCA beach. And I would encourage you to take a look at additional pictures on the Coastal Records program, because what we're showing here, this is 8.5 miles of shoreline, and I'm just showing you like one snapshot for one piece of each of these beaches, but there's many more to show off the extensive shoreline that's at discussion here. Here's a picture of Sakate Beach. You may remember this from our presentation in July when we gave you the briefing on the YMCA litigation. This is just on the ground. You can see that, it's a nice sandy beach. Here's Phase 2 beach, Bulito Beach in the middle reach. And again, in the background, you can see that there's a developed parking area and some other facilities for the private homeowners. This, in year 2, we will be adding Bulito and Drake's, both in the middle reach, and the daily users would be increased to 300 persons per day in the first year and expand to 400 in the third year. Here is Drake's Beach. Again, this is the second phase. And then Phase 3, the last phase, are the 2 beaches that are at the eastern end, closest to Gaviota State Park. This Phase 3 would start in year 5, and it would run for 1 or more years. These are the 2 beaches called Agua Caliente and Alegria. Both are located at the end, at the terminus of 2 small creeks, and in the environmental assessment were identified as having the most sensitive resources. So therefore, the program that was adopted calls for the preparation of a management plan before these 2 areas are open for public use. When these 2 beaches are open, they would be limited to scientific and educational purposes only, and users would be limited to 500 people per day per beach. So in summary, the program, when fully implemented in year 5, with the total daily public use would be limited to 500 people per day. So the next steps, and this is the last slide that we have. The next steps are, in 1979, the legislature directed the Coastal Commission to prepare the access program for the Conservancy to amend the program through a detailed access management plan. So in approving the 1982 program, the Commission found that the program was based on sound planning principles to provide public access opportunities while protecting sensitive resources and private property rights. But given the passage of over 36 years since the program was adopted, it is reasonable to consider updating the program to take into account current conditions and changed circumstances. Since the essential and critical components are embedded within the existing program, the update will not require a complete rewrite. Staff recommends that the 1982 environmental assessment be updated to reflect the current beach conditions, public concerns, and management issues. Identification of biological and cultural resources and including policies to ensure their protection is essential. The updated program will provide the framework for the Conservancy to prepare the access management plan. This plan will provide the specific details on how the public will actually be provided access on a daily basis in a way that does not harm resources, as well as and takes into account environmental justice concerns into account. Potential components of this management plan may include such things as seasonal restrictions at certain beaches to protect sensitive resources, such as snowy plovers and harbor seals, increased protection of tide pool areas, docent monitors to educate the public about the resources and the rules protecting them to ensure compliance with those rules, identification of specific locations for the beach access support facilities and ensure that any biological and cultural sites are protected and are mitigated from construction and use activities. And the plan will also need to include adaptive management strategies that provide for modifying the plan over time as needed based upon annual evaluation by both the Conservancy and the Commission. We intend to hold a pretty extensive public process for the updating of the access program. We will solicit public input by holding a public workshop, and we have targeted March for a workshop in Santa Barbara. We've already entered into discussions with our sister agencies who share the mandate to provide public access opportunities for all Californians. The Conservancy and the Commission, along with state parks and state lands, are working together and are intending to sign a memorandum of cooperation that will facilitate the opening of beaches along the Hollister Ranch shoreline. And when the draft access program is prepared, we will share this with the public prior to adoption by the Coastal Commission. And in summary, the last thing I'd like to say before we hand this over to Jack is that one thing we know for sure that has changed over the intervening 36 years is that California's population has almost doubled since the plan was adopted, from about 23 million in 1980 to over 40 million today. While the population has grown immensely, the miles of California coastline have not changed. The demand for public access to and along the coast grows greater every year. Thank you.